Thank you for listening to Ingram Law, LLC. Our website is joeingramlaw.com. Again, joeingramlaw.com. Our phone number is 205-335-2640. Today is our second podcast, so let's jump right in. The topic is divorce. Divorce is a hard subject. It is a fact of life. In fact, approximately 50% of marriages end in divorce in the state of Alabama. And I think Madison County and Huntsville has one of the highest rates of divorce in the state. Why? Well, it is a melting pot, if you will. There is the Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville. There are engineers and all sorts of professions from all over the world that work in Huntsville. They are higher income earners, higher educated people, and there's just a lot of divorce in Huntsville for whatever reason. Do I promote divorce? No. Do I help people navigate the waters of divorce, put their lives back together, and move forward? Yes. I do it every day, every week, every month. I counsel people on their marriage. Sometimes it is better not to get divorced and go to counseling and the parties work on their marriage. Sometimes it is the right decision to end the marriage and go their separate ways. I had a lady I did a divorce for several years ago, came back to me. She got remarried. She came back to me and she was contemplating divorce. I sat down and met with she and her husband. We had a nice chat for about 2 or 3 hours. We identified the issues in her marriage. They decided to go to marriage counseling, make their marriage work. The good news is they are still married. Congratulations. So, in our podcast, we will define what marriage is under the Alabama law. We will discuss premarital agreements. Why do you draft one? Why do you need it? I have done a lot of premarital agreements the last 5 years. And while I was preparing for this show today, I asked myself, I wonder why. I'm not sure really why, but it's becoming more recent with people signing premarital agreements. I believe it is due to younger people being more educated. They are coming into the marriage with more assets, higher educations, higher rates of pay, and they want to protect those before they get married in case the marriage does not work out. Premarital agreements usually fall into 2 categories. One is that there is a person, say, in their mid to late 50s, early 60s, has already been divorced, has created assets for themselves, built a life, a retirement account. Maybe this person has children from a prior marriage, wants to leave something to their children, and now they're ready to get remarried. And at the same time, they want to protect the assets, and that's okay. That's very common, very reasonable. The second scenario is a young professional, such as a lawyer, engineer, pharmacist, doctor, someone that has started a business. They want to protect what they have made for themselves and accumulated in case the marriage does not work out. Is that really the best way to start out a first marriage? Well, the answer is it depends on the parties and their personal finances. I am currently working on a premarital agreement, and it is over 20 pages in length. Hopefully, we are going to get the language ironed out so that this couple can get married before the end of the year. One of the other things we're going to talk about in our podcast at length, but I just want to mention today, is grounds for divorce. And your question to me is, Joe, what do you mean by grounds for divorce? Well, in Alabama, divorce is a no-fault state. But there are also grounds for divorce. One of the first is incompatibility. And you're going to say, what is that? Well, basically, what that means, the two people can't get along, can't live together in peace and harmony, so they want to divide the marital property and move on with their separate lives. The next ground for divorce, and this is about 90% of all my cases fall into this category: irretrievable breakdown of the marriage. Basically, what that means in a nutshell is further attempts at reconciliation are impractical or futile and not in the best interest of the parties or the family. The next ground for divorce, and this is a common one in the state of Alabama, is adultery. Adultery can be defined as unfaithfulness to one spouse, sexual intercourse on the part of a married man with a woman other than his wife, or if a married woman with a man other than her husband, and even for that matter, another woman in this day and time. Adultery is the most frequently utilized fault ground for divorce in the state of Alabama. Now you're going to say, Joe, how do you prove adultery unless you have 8x5, 11 glossy prints? Well, first of all, you can hire an investigator. You can follow your spouse. You can even put a device on their car to track them, to see where they're going. You can get into their cell phone, look at their text messages, look at their emails. You can look at their social media accounts, their profiles. Are they in chat rooms talking with other people about relationships, sex? 20 years ago, when I started out practicing law, we didn't have all of this technology, the text and the emails and the social media platforms. So it was a different day and time 20 years ago. Here's another big ground for divorce in the state of Alabama: abandonment. So what is abandonment? Basically, what it means is the person has been gone for more than a year and you do not know where they are, and they have left the marriage. So how does this scenario play out with me? A potential client will call me and say, Mr. Ingram, I am married. My spouse left the home over a year ago, have not had any contact. I do not know where they are. In fact, I think they've left the state of Alabama. How do I get divorced? I say it's very simple. We get you a divorce by publication. Publication, what does that mean? Well, here's the scenario. You come see me, we get some information, and we file a petition for divorce as to abandonment, and we allege that you do not know the whereabouts of your spouse and you have not seen them in more than a year. The court takes the petition. We ask the court to run the petition for divorce in a newspaper of general circulation. Here's the key here. Here's the key of 4 consecutive weeks. They have notice. Now, typically, we run these in a paper called the Alabama Messenger. Unless you're a lawyer or you're really a nerd or a wonk or somebody looking for legal property, nobody reads the Alabama Messenger. But it's a general publication. So we have run your divorce petition for 4 consecutive weeks. Next, we file a motion for a default judgment. The court will set your motion for a hearing date, typically somewhere within 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the county in which you are filing for divorce. We go to court. The judge has to take some testimony on the record. And when I say testimony, it's very simple. What is your name? What's your address, your date of birth? What's the name of your spouse? When did you get married? Where did you get married? How long did you live together? When did your spouse leave the home? When's the last time you had contact with your spouse? Do you have any idea where your spouse is? No. The judge grants you a divorce, and you are divorced at that point. Now here comes the crazy part. Let's say your spouse gets wind that you are divorced and they suddenly come back into the picture. They can file a motion with the court to set aside the default judgment of divorce. And typically it's within 6 months, maybe up to a year. There's some case law related to default judgments. I'm not going to discuss that. That is too boring. It'll put you to sleep. But your spouse could actually file a motion with the court to set aside your divorce judgment. Is the court going to grant that motion? Typically, yes. Why? Well, in the state of Alabama, as in most states, courts frown, disfavor default judgments. In the United States judicial system, we believe in due process. People having their day in court, having their rights heard. So the court will probably set aside the default judgment. That does not necessarily mean I won't get you divorced. It just means it'll take a little longer. The last takeaway today is that if you are in a marriage and it is not going well, and it's not been going well for some time, and you are contemplating divorce, go see a lawyer. Get some advice. I tell people, you did not get married in a day, and you should not pull the trigger and get divorced in a day. In some cases, if the marriage is less than 5 years old, it may be an uncontested divorce in which both parties come to an agreement of issues and division of property and submit those papers to the court. Then there are, in contested divorce cases, issues such as division of property, marital debts, maybe children, custody, child support, alimony, retirement accounts, and even tax issues. So there is a lot of meat on the bone, if you will, for us to discuss in the coming weeks. And we will look at each one of those issues from a big picture, and we will dive into each of those issues individually. I have had some prior clients that may come in and discuss their case. We will just mention their first name to protect their identity and their privacy. But it'll give you a real feel and taste of what divorce is like. Divorce is emotional, draining, sometimes dirty, and expensive. Again, thank you for listening. I hope you continue to listen and follow us. We will provide information to be educational and be a resource guide for you. If you need help, contact us at joeingramlaw.com or 205-335-2640. Take care of yourself and each other and have a good day. No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.